Did you know that it has been 10 years since the Oscar-nominated cultural reset, The Lego Movie, was released? This movie may have been one big elaborate marketing campaign, however, this also changed the trajectory of all of our lives and started its own little subgenre of movies. Now, first off, let's talk about the cast, and for a movie that is based off what is just a kid's toy, it was absolutely stacked. Starting off, we have Chris Pratt as the main character, Emmett. Now, keep in mind as well, at this time, Chris Pratt was only just starting to become mainstream and was nowhere near the A-list status that he is today. At this point in time, he was really only known for Parks and Rec.
I typed your symptoms into the thing up here and it says you could have network connectivity problems.
Which in itself isn't a small feat at all. However, Guardians of the Galaxy was still 6 months away from releasing. I scrolled through his entire discography on IMDb and confirmed a suspicion that I had, and that was that the Lego Movie kicked off the Chris Pratt voice acting invasion. I blamed the Lego Movie for Chris Pratt being cast as Mario. Wahoo! We also had Elizabeth Banks, Will Arnett, Morgan Freeman, Will Ferrell, and even cameos from Anthony Daniels and Billy Dee Williams, but that is just scratching the surface, and we'll talk more about those cameos later. Now, the movie starts throwing us straight into the thick of things with a fully Lego animated Warner Brothers intro. They went to the effort of replicating scratches and fingerprints and just like general wear and tear on a minifigure and Lego pieces, and it really shows. The movie establishes the villain in the comedy style very quickly.
I see everything.
Now, speaking of the comedy style, look, I chuckled a couple times in this movie. However, I don't think it's honestly that strong.
Cover your butt.
Cover the what?
There are just some points where it feels a little forced and it doesn't have quite that same like Lego charm that I feel like the Lego video games have. Now, our villain, Lord Business, is played by Will Ferrell, and he is out to steal what he calls the Kraggle, and that is basically where our story begins. Why does Will Ferrell keep getting cast as like the mean guy in kids' toy movies? I don't know, you tell me. And during this whole sequence, Vitruvius, played by Morgan Freeman, comes along and tries to stop him, and then spits out this whole thing about a prophecy because, you know, that prophecy just makes everything so much cooler. I mean, look at Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. Even they did it. 8.5 years later, transition. We're introduced to our main character, Emmett, who lives in the city of Bricksburg. And Bricksburg, might I add, is an absolute slay. This city looks so cool, so impressive. It is absolutely mind-blowing. I love looking at this, and I also think it's really clever. Bricksburg and its citizens are made to seem very idealistic, very utopian, but all of that is a facade. This system is bad, and they tell you that by dropping a couple of hints that you've always got to
Follow the instructions
and basically conform to the system. It really sounds like you'd be living in Groundhog Day. There is a lot of repetition, there is a lot of lines, there's a lot of traffic. It just looks horrible. Now, don't shoot the messenger, but Bricksburg also gives off the vibe and feeling of what I assume businesses think the world would be like if we all followed that like classic corporate America type of thing. Alfred Emmett, though, is a gold star citizen in this regard. All he wants to do is follow the instructions. However, he's a little bit of a weird egg, and none of the citizens seem to acknowledge him or let him fit in. He's a real outsider, and he tries so hard to fit in and blend in with people, and it doesn't work. And one day after work, Emmett is trying to invite himself to an event with a couple other citizens. However, he loses his instructions that basically tell him how to live his life. And whilst he's trying to track them down, because heaven forbid he live without his instructions, he comes across Wildstar, who is sneaking around the construction zone after hours, and Emmett, being a little rule follower, is trying to track her down and tell her, hey, you can't be doing that, you don't have a hard hat. While trying to follow her though, he slips and falls down into this cave, which is really nice and really pretty, and a perfect example of don't go towards the light. And even though he's typically a rule follower, he gets distracted and he walks up to this glowing object and decides to touch it, even though he has no idea what it is. When he wakes up, we're introduced to good cop, bad cop, and Emmett has no idea where he is. He is sat in an interrogation cell. What on earth is going on? And he finds out that that piece that he went up and touched is now permanently glued to his back.
Hi, buddy.
How did that actually happen? No idea. The movie never actually explains it. It just suddenly happens. This piece is in hot demand because apparently it is the only thing that can stop the Kraggle. So Lord Business, he wants that piece badly.
So you've never heard of the prophecy?
Which states whoever finds this piece, which is referred to as the piece of resistance, is the special and the person who will basically save the entire universe. That's a lot of responsibility for one person. During this scene too, there is quite a little sad moment where like all of the people that Emmett talked to earlier in the movie are being interviewed and none of them can like recall who he is.
But I know like zippy zap about him.
And that's when he realizes that really he's alone and has no friends. So this is quite sad. So suddenly to be told you are special and you are the special and like super important, you know, that's gonna do a lot to a person. Luckily for Emmett, Wildstar comes along and helps him break out of Lord Business's office and saves him from a cat laser. She thinks that he's super special and super cool, and they end up having this like high-speed car chase on a motorcycle that she built out of just like random pieces lying around from the city, because it turns out she is a master builder. Now a master builder is someone who doesn't really follow the instructions. They can kind of just see the world around them and build whatever they want. They are the epitome of creativity, and she thinks that Emmett is the same. So during this whole high-speed car chase, Emmett is accidentally just like wrecking these robots and whatever that support Lord Business, and she thinks that he is the coolest person ever and drags him out to the Old West. However, she very quickly learns that he is not a builder. He is the most generic person ever, and she gets so offended. It's so wild to me.
You ruined the prophecy.
There's no need for that much shade. It reminds me a lot, honestly, of like the storyline of Kung Fu Panda, when like all of the dojo people were really mad that Po was the dragon warrior, and is like, how is this panda gonna help us defeat like the tiger person? I don't remember his name. She also basically calls him a pathetic mindless zombie, which is kind of rude but also kind of true, and then takes him to go and see Vitruvius in the middle of this old western bar type of thing.
How's that, pal?
And Vitruvius basically says, yeah, I'll help you become a master builder. I'll teach you how to color outside of the lines. And it's during this segment as well that we learned that Lord Business has divided up the world into different themes, basically, kind of like Lego is. There's also a bunch of references to some old Lego themes, which is pretty funny. And because of the fact that the whole world is completely segregated, these master builders are a huge threat to Lord Business, and he wants them gone. And that's exactly why he wants to use the Kraggle on all of the citizens so that everything can stay perfect. It's a little dark when you think about it too much. Since Emmett has the Kraggle and is the special, they take him up to this place called Cloud Cuckoo Land. Now this is also where we're briefly introduced to Batman, who is the funniest character out of this entire movie. No wonder he got his own spin-off.
I'm Batman.
We are also introduced to Unikitty, who lives in Cloud Cuckoo Land, and brings them up to this kind of palace meeting area, which is shaped like a dog head. All of the master builders are summoned, and I think this is a really cool moment because there are so many different characters from so many different themes. We have Superman, the Green Lantern, Milhouse, Dumbledore, Gandalf, a bunch of NBA players, and Michelangelo from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's a really fun time. But Emmett, as we know, is kind of an imposter, so when he's giving this speech, no one really believes him because he's not a master builder and they don't trust him, and basically it divides up all of the master builders. And at this point too, Cloud Cuckoo Land starts to be attacked.
It's the bad guys.
So all of the master builders are trying to escape from being captured, so everyone is running around like crazy.
To the Batmobile. Dang it.
And honestly, my favorite, which is where the NBA players try to create a slingshot to take down the robots.
Y'all ready for this? Oh no, they were ready for that.
Iconic. Cloud Cuckoo Land gets absolutely destroyed. Unikitty is crying, and all of our main heroes luckily manage to escape. But for everyone else, however, they all got captured and thrown into what Lord Business likes to call his think tank, which he tells us is how all of the Lego instructions are made for all of the regular citizens. He is like a real dictator. It's bad. Now in this explosion, all of the master builders were trying to work together in order to build a ship and a submarine, and the only thing that didn't get destroyed was Emmett's idea of a double-decker couch.
What the heck is that?
It's a double-decker couch.
And because of how plain and stupid it was perceived as, the cops did not pick up on it, and they think that all of those characters died in the explosion. All of the master builders are then picked up by Metalbeard the pirate with his giant, really cool pirate ship, and they all hatch a plan in order to break into Lord Business's office and save the universe. Whilst they're all brainstorming, they start to realize that the only way that they are ever going to get in is if the master builders Be like everyone else. Oh my gosh, the thought of that and trying to be plain and boring and blend in, it makes them want to throw up.
I can't.
And this is also actually where we get a cameo from a bunch of Star Wars characters.
This ship needs a hyperdrive. We don't have that part.
Maybe we could find one.
What do you think? A spaceship is just gonna appear out of the blue? Are you kidding me?
I love this. And then the amount of voice actors that came back for this segment, oh my gosh, it is so funny. And Batman's like, yeah, I'm gonna go exploring with these guys. That sounds really chill. And then steals their hyperdrive out of the Millennium Falcon. And then all of the Star Wars characters die. So the teams build their little ship and it is now time to sneak in to Lord Business's office.
First try.
The entire crew split up and we have this really awesome moment where Batman goes in as Bruce Wayne into like a business meeting inside the office with Unikitty, and they are just spitting out like a bunch of nonsense, but the robots just like don't care. And then Emmett and Wildstar have to dress up like robots and they sneak in by singing the Everyone is Awesome song because like everyone who is boring and basic seems to love that song.
No way, this is my jam.
Yet that also became like the theme of the movie.
Everything is awesome.
And since they like kind of might die at this point, Wildstar opens up and tells Emmett that she's actually called Lucy, and it turns out that she is just like really insecure and like hates herself, I guess, and changed her whole identity so that she could be someone cooler. And Emmett's like, yeah, but you are cool, and they like have a moment. But like, I hated this character arc. It really irritated me. I know it's about embracing who you are, but it just made her character seem like she has like major pick-me energy and was just like so in desperate need of attention that like I just completely zoned out. I did not care. Part of that could also be fueled by the fact that she has a absolutely criminal side part that reminds me of my like year 7 school photo. And I don't want to be reminded of that. But unfortunately, the team's plan ends up failing and nothing works. And then all of the master builders end up getting thrown into the think tank as Lord Business tries to extract the piece of resistance from Emmett's back while he is strapped to like a D-tap battery or something. It's quite funny. They try to like blow him up, but like Emmett eventually just like ends up throwing himself out of the window into this like giant rainbow pit of nothing. During this whole scene too, Vitruvius like comes along as a ghost because like he died earlier in the movie. I kind of forgot to mention that. And he tells Emmett that like, oh yeah, sorry, I just made the prophecy up right after like he thought he was all special and interesting and important. Like, oh my gosh, the heartache. Oh, I don't blame Emmett for kind of throwing himself out the window at that point. Like, man, that's rough. He could have just taken that to the grave, but instead he decided to come back and ruin someone's life. So at this point, all of the characters are mourning Emmett's death. It is really sad and they're like, oh my gosh, what do we do? But plot twist, it turns out Emmett's still alive. The pit that he fell into actually led him to the real world. Genius storytelling. It turns out during this whole movie, that world, it's not real. It's in someone's imagination. It is in this little kid's imagination in his like dad's Lego city in the basement of their house. A very fitting and cool plot twist if you ask me. I also find it really, really clever because Lord Business is actually the kid's dad. Now, Will Ferrell as the dad is basically the embodiment of the worst Lego fan you will ever meet in your life. But at the same time, I did relate to some of the things that he was saying, and I don't know what that says about me.
Let's put everything back the way you found it.
Probably not good things. His dad is basically the Lego version of like train model enthusiast who has like spent all of his time building and constructing this Lego city and just like wants everything to be perfect. So he wants to glue everything so that his kids don't play with it, I guess because it's like valuable and cool, which like I don't blame him because like I like having all my valuable stuff like in its place. I don't want it to get ruined as much as I love it and love to use it. I'm a little bit particular too. He's also very clearly spent a lot of time in his city, so I don't blame that. However, you don't glue things. You never glue things. That's just a crime unless you're in Legoland. That's acceptable because it's a theme park. His son, however, is the complete opposite to Will Ferrell. He just wants to have fun. He wants to play with things. He wants all of the characters to interact, and that's why Batman got thrown in. And he also realized that his son like ripped off the top half of a building to like continue his story. Honestly, I would be a little bit annoyed at that too, but the son has a good point. Like, why does everything have to be perfect? It's all about fun and creativity and, you know, all those types of Lego things. And Emmett's listening to this whole conversation because his consciousness is still intact, and he realizes that he's gonna need the kids' help in order to save his friends. So he kind of got captured at the dad at this point and like thrown on a table. So then like Emmett tries to like wiggle, but he's like static because he's an actual Lego piece. Eventually the kid notices and he's like, oh my gosh, Emmett, I've got to save you. And then like shoots him down a kitchen roll tube, which apparently is a magic portal. And Emmett ends up making his way back into Bricksburg in order to help all of his friends save the entire city. Now during this whole saga, Wildstyle and the rest of the gang have been trying to figure out a way to inspire the citizens and get them to rebel and make all of these weird spaceships and figure out basically just like how to stop themselves from being glued by like attacking all of the little micromanaging robots. And you know, there's a revelation. It also turns out that Taco Tuesday that Lord Business was promoting isn't actually about tacos. It's about gluing people, and it was just a way to get everyone outside so that he could glue them. It makes a lot of sense why his name is Lord Business, because he is a liar. However, Dad / Lord Business were one step ahead of everyone, and they started destroying the creations, and they would just pick people out of their spaceships and put them in the city and glue them tight, and it was really dramatic. All hope was lost. But Emmett comes up to Lord Business and they have a really nice heart-to-heart about creativity, which perfectly mirrors the son having a conversation with his dad, and it was just like a really heartfelt moment. And you're like, oh my gosh, creativity. Yes, not everything should be perfect.
Look at all of these things that people built.
But then I'm still thinking in my head, I'm like, if someone ruined my like really expensive Queen Amidala minifigure, I would throw hands. So it was also really hard for me to relate at this point. Again, what does that say about me? But I love this parallel. It like cuts between the real world and it cuts between the Lego world, and it's really cool, to be honest. Eventually, Will Ferrell learns his lesson and he decides to put the piece of resistance on the Craggle, and the universe is saved. And then he like pulls out some sort of liquid and is like trying to de-glue all of the stuff he just glued. I don't know if that actually works. I've never tried it. I don't want to test out that theory, but good for him. I mean, like he quite literally did the worst thing possible by like gluing his Lego and made the quality worse. And now he's like, it's all good because it's fixed. During this whole like resolution type of thing as well, Wildstar comes along and she's like, oh my gosh, Emmett, you're alive. I'm so excited. And he's like, oh my gosh, Lucy. And then Batman, who I forgot to mention, Batman has been Wildstar's boyfriend this entire time. Apparently they're in a relationship. So Batman comes out of the jet and he's like, oh, hi. And then he like low-key breaks up with her because he doesn't want to get broken up with. I love that. And I guess because they're like broken up, she can now date Emmett. I guess that's a thing. And then the entire movie ends with the dad being like, all right, well, like if you're gonna come play with the city, like your sister's invited too. And then the kid's like, oh, what? And then it ends on such a fun, perfectly Lego note with all of these like Duplo characters coming to attack the city, because that is what the sister is playing with, because I guess she's like 3 or something. Amazing storytelling from the Lego movie team here. I thought it was really, really clever, and I think that really benefited this movie because one, it just looks cool. It gets people through the door, and then all these adults are watching it and they're like, wow, this is actually a really smart story, and then like they appreciate it and the movie's super successful, and then adults feel slightly better about playing with toys as an adult. I mean, that only just like continued as COVID kind of hit, and now you just look at Lego now and you're like, wow, that's like intense. But that is the icon that is the Lego movie. Let me know if the Lego movie changed your life, and also let me know what you think about the Lego movie catapulting Chris Pratt into voice acting, because I feel like that's a very interesting conversation. Anyway, like this video if you enjoyed it, consider subscribing to my channel down below, and until next time, I'll see you later.